Today, we explore an exciting theme, the symphony of healing, music, nature, and the voice within, in one place, the power of your voice with Mike Murphy.
Hey, welcome everybody to the weekly Power of Your Voice podcast. And I'm your host, Mike Murphy, and I'm super excited that you're here and able to join us. We have a really powerful show in store for you tonight, and excited to deliver it to you. I'm going to ask you one favor before we get started here. The show is just doing extremely well. We are extremely grateful, my team and I. But we're getting tens of thousands of views for each and every show, but our subscribers aren't growing. And I don't know how any of that works, but the only thing I can tell you is if you are watching on YouTube, if you do us a favor and hit that thumbs up, I think that has something to do with algorithms. And if you can subscribe, that'll tell us that we're going in the right direction. And more importantly, if you really like the content that we're giving to you, if you could share it with your friends and family, we would be greatly appreciative. So today's show is going to really be on the power of sound, the power of frequency, and the power of using frequency and sound for healing, and maybe how frequency has been set off tune to make it harder to heal. I don't know, but I know our next guest is going to be able to answer some of these questions. So we're going to have a great guest, a great interview, and then when we get into the Mountains of Hope segment, we're going to talk about using sound energy for healing the chakras, and actually taking a sound bath. And when I close the show with the Mike Murphy Power of Your Voice segment, I'm going to explain to you how this entire world, the entire world that you see, was created with one thing: the power of sound. Energy vibrating at a certain frequency created everything that you see in this world and in this universe. But before I bring on my next guest, let me introduce him. His name is Nathan Ironside. It's alive, plus awake, plus responding now. It's the life slogan of Nathan Ironside and his team, The Awakening. I think there was a movie called The Awakening. Born on the Sunshine Coast in Australia, creatively, Nathan is an artist, songwriter, and music producer. Spiritually, he is positioned as a worship and creative arts pastor. Since the age of 15 to date, he has produced over 50 albums and has been a songwriter in English and Spanish for a variety of artists in Australia, the United States, Europe, and now Latin America. In May of 2020, Nathan released El Despertar Live, an album containing the most representative songs recorded live with 7,000 worshipers in Medellin, Colombia. Currently, Nathan and his wife, Mary, are based with their family in Ohio, United States of America, leading the worship, production, and creative departments of Journey Church, a multi-campus church of 5,000 congregants. Nathan continues to write and produce music with various artists and plans soon to recommence releasing music and touring throughout South America, the U.S., and Australia. Nathan, welcome to the Power of Your Voice podcast.
Thank you so much, Mike. I am truly honored to be here, man, and great to meet you. And I've heard great things about you. So good to finally be able to speak with you face to face, as it were.
Yes.
So,
well,
greetings from Northeast Ohio.
Well, thank you so much. I grew up in Cincinnati, so I can relate.
Oh, come on.
You're
great. You know the weather well. You know the area well.
Well, you're more in Cleveland. Cincinnati has a little more mild weather than you guys up there in Cleveland area. But I love Ohio. I love the whole area up there. So most importantly, thank you for being on the show. I want to tell you a little story because I really believe in synchronicity. I really believe that when we're tuned into the right frequencies, things just show up in our life. And I think there's a particular reason that you showed up in my life today, and I'll tell you why. So we were doing my first webinar ever today, and I take this little natural supplement, but it tends to amp me up and make me a little jittery. My energy was a little low when I woke up this morning, so I took an extra dose. And then the next thing I realized, I'm way too jittery for this webinar I'm about ready to do. I needed to relax and calm down. So I went out into nature, got my iPad out, and I started looking for songs or frequencies or sounds that would put me into a relaxed state, right? So explain to me why I was doing that intuitively. I just knew I needed a different vibrational frequency to chill and relax. Tell me how all that works.
That's phenomenal that you mentioned that. You know, music is powerful. We know that. You know that you've experienced it even today in your personal life. As a music producer, as a songwriter, my life revolves around music, not only professionally but personally. My kids are discovering music. My wife, she loves music. So it's, you know, music and sound and rhythms are a part of our everyday life, and you cannot escape it. You walk into a grocery store and there's music in the background. You go to a funeral and there's music playing. You go to a wedding and the celebration is supported by culturally or creatively by music. You go to any type of public space and there's normally music playing in the background. You go to a place of worship, music is involved. You can't really escape it. So, and I love what you said about the power of music. It's made up of four things, as you probably know: rhythm, harmony, melody, and tone. Or another way to say tone is frequencies.
Yep.
And those four elements combined together in a infinite multitude of combinations to create what we know as music, sound, frequencies that can impact us in different ways. They can bring healing, they can produce stress, they can relieve stress, and you experience that today.
Yeah.
And I love what you were talking about. I believe the words, the creation frequency, means something to you.
Yes.
And to your audience as well. So I'm excited to know more about your perspective on this as well, Mike. I think it's incredible to think about this creative power of sound,
Yeah.
tones, frequencies made up of rhythms, harmonies, melodies that we have, and what it can do to the human body, what it can do to the human soul, how it can affect the human mind, and even those around you. And you said something about being synchronized,
Yeah.
which I love. I mean, even our watches,
Right.
are ticking away, and there's a rhythm to them.
Yeah.
And that's the first part of music. Sound is rhythm.
Yeah.
And there literally is a rhythm to everything. The stars have a rhythm. I'm not an expert, but scientists have proven that the stars and the planets, they have a rhythm to them. They have a tone to them as well. They have a sound, which is a harmony. If you zoom out a little bit and you hear the different tones that telescopes and specialized microphones have been able to pick up, you actually begin to realize there's a whole orchestra, if you will, happening out there via the planets and via the stars.
Yeah.
And that's echoed down through creation here on Earth.
Yep.
The mountains have a sound, they have a tone.
Yep.
The oceans have a sound, they have a tone, and they have a rhythm. So I wonder what it would be like to hear all that with the perspective of music, what that would sound like. I'm sure there's a great song, a masterpiece happening right now throughout creation. So I'm very interested in this subject and honored to be able to share with you about it and your audience, and also what it means to us personally. And you just mentioned in a few brief words something very powerful about being synchronized, about being aligned, about being in time with the sound, the frequencies, and how that affects us personally.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm excited.
Well, you said a bunch of interesting stuff right there, and one thing that resonated with me a little bit was, the planet's 70% water. Our bodies are 70% water, and I really, and I study the work of Nikola Tesla a lot. That says if you want to understand the universe, you have to understand energy, vibration, frequency. But I would imagine, because we are 70% water, the planet is 70%. I would imagine this vibrational energy of sound affects water, because we know water holds memory. And I think that's the calming effect, is that frequency gets the water vibrating a certain frequency and can relax us or agitate us or make us, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Just this morning, I have three beautiful children. My wife, Mary, and I, she's from Colombia, South America. I'm from Australia. We met in Sydney, and somehow we're living in Ohio, but that's another story. But we have three beautiful kids. Hannah, she's 8, Joshua's 4, and Bella Grace, the newest arrival, she's 5 months old. So we're in that newborn stage. Yeah. She's amazing. It's incredible to see how they react to music. So every morning I drive my daughter Hannah to school and drop her off. Sometimes my son, 4-year-old, he accompanies us, and it's always a party, So just this morning, I put this very song, and I'm going to play it for you. You might be able to hear it a little bit in the background, kind of. But let me just play this for you. You can hear the sound. Just a few seconds.
Is it playing now?
So
'Cause I can't hear it.
you couldn't hear it?
We couldn't hear it.
You could not hear it. Okay, well, I won't try again. 'Cause
Okay,
you probably won't be able
just
to hear
give
it,
us the theme of what you wanted to us to
yeah,
hear.
the theme is that there are certain combinations of notes and sounds that produce certain atmospheres. I'll give you a real life demonstration right now.
Okay.
I happen to have an acoustic guitar here,
Okay.
and if I play an E major, right? You
Yeah.
heard that one?
Yep.
That's an E major. That's a certain type of tone. Now, if I just change one note and give you an E minor,
Yeah. Yeah. Got
so
it.
you can feel the difference right there. If I stay there for a few seconds, it's a different atmosphere
Yes.
right then that I begin to feel straight away.
Yeah.
Suddenly my mind goes to, my emotions go to potentially deeper, more introspective thoughts.
Yep.
If I go back to the E major tone again,
Yep.
you know, I want to get excited. I want to
Right. And that's just through frequency. Your body is reacting to certain frequencies and tones based on what you hear. And so this, I was going to get into this later in the show, but you're forcing me to go here now, right now. And you may not know nothing about this, but it's something I've studied for a while. And I think it was in 1920 or 1930 or somewhere around there, where I think it was the Rockefeller family, had them change the frequency that songs are based on, going from 432 hertz to 440 hertz. Are you familiar with any of that?
Absolutely.
Tell me what happened there. Because what my understanding is, we're much better off at 432 hertz for healing and stuff like that than the 440 kind of almost maybe darker kind of energy.
Yeah, you're correct. You know, 440 has become the standard right now.
Right.
And it is a darker sound, or it's also a more abrasive sound.
Yeah.
It actually produces more stress.
Yes.
And even though you have a lot of classical music, a lot of instrumental music, a lot of music that's specially designed to produce peace, it still does, even though it's in this 440 frequency range. So the 432, however, and there are other frequencies that I myself am on a journey of studying.
Like 528, right? 528 is the frequency of love, right?
It's the frequency of love. There is a frequency of healing. Off the top of my head, I can't remember right now the exact frequency. I will need to look that up again. But it's certainly worth investigating. And there are musicians and artists that have taken those frequencies and tuned all of their instruments, and in fact, not just the instruments, but the recording equipment to those frequencies. Oh. And when you listen to those frequencies and those pieces of art, really, on the right kind of sound system in the right environment, it is life-changing.
Yes.
And I have experienced that. And it's something where it's kind of like, as a commercial producer, a professional, as well as someone who's passionate about music, I have this part of me that I'm discovering these frequencies of healing. And I have this part of me that, as a commercial producer, producing music for pop artists, rock artists, Latin music artists, I need to kind of cater to what they want.
Yeah.
So there's this balance and tension, if you will, between what I know the power of music is, if we just go a bit deeper, versus what is popular right now. So and both are powerful in their own right, but they're just different. And the more you dive into it, the more you see the power of tone and frequencies is phenomenal.
Are you familiar at all with the work of Royal Rife, who was using frequencies to heal people?
That name does ring a bell to me. I did a study a couple of years ago. I can't say I'm familiar right now, but I did a study a couple of years ago. I was looking at the works of Handel, Bach, and more modern composers.
Okay.
We're using different frequencies currently and experimenting with the power of frequencies. And I do recall that name, yes.
And what's interesting to me, you know, America's a fairly new country, right? But if you go to the old churches and cathedrals of Europe, and where they had those huge organs that really literally took up the entire wall, the back wall of the church or the front wall of the church, excuse me, that music that they were producing was super, super powerful, super, super healing, and super, super useful for communicating with God, communicating with a higher power, to get into that zone, that state where you can download from God. You know, do you feel that?
Correct. Absolutely. I agree, Mike. And what's interesting is that this was before we really harnessed recording music, you know, and today recording music, first it was analog, became what we know as analog. And to
Yes.
simplify
Yes.
it, now it's
Yes.
digital. We have both now, but now the way things are working, it's so easy and convenient for anyone with a phone or a computer or a laptop can record a masterpiece essentially and take their time to produce and record music. It wasn't like that. So when these massive organs were created, people had to come to those locations
Yeah.
to hear and to feel
Yes.
the power of these frequencies.
Yes.
And that's something that I think we've lost a little bit of in our digital generation, where everything is so accessible on my phone, on my computer, with me everywhere, that I don't appreciate as much the value of these frequencies and actually experiencing them, feeling them,
Yeah.
more than just hearing them.
Yeah. And that's why I think the music from back then, and even before they made this switch from 432 to 440, music was more spiritual, more healing, more powerful, and it would bring communities together. And I think we've lost
Correct.
something in this world. So tell me about this going from analog to digital. Why did they do it? What's the bit? I'm sure it has to do with producing and all that, but from your take, was that a good thing? I'm sure there's good and there's bad. Point out the good and the bad going from analog to digital.
Yes, so it's about convenience. It's about ease of use. It's about, being able to think of something and hear something in your head and your heart, and being able to replicate it so quickly with the power of MIDI, the power of digital recording, and the plugins and the software that's available to us now is phenomenal. It still cannot replace. You can't count someone who is tone deaf into a studio and expect them to record and sound like a Pavarotti. That's not going to happen, or have the impact that a phenomenal professional singer will have.
Yeah.
But the tools are so far advanced now that we're being able to emulate the qualities and the tones, I would say the harmonics of analog music, but it's still not the same.
Yeah.
It's still a very intelligent use of ones and zeros to be able to emulate what we're getting. So the transition from analog to digital, I lived it, I experienced it. My studies and my early years, my passion for music started out on analog equipment. I went to school in the digital age of software, and recording to different programs was emerging. And, it was a big learning curve, but I embraced it, and I'm glad that I did, because the power of it that we have at our fingertips right now to be able to create different styles of music and use tones, it's phenomenal and it's powerful. However, there are many recording engineers and musicians, in fact, who will refuse to use digital recording equipment or processing when it comes to mixing or mastering, those kind of things. They'll still revert back to using analog equipment where you can adjust the volume of something to the point of hearing the harmonics. Another way to say that is hear the warmth of the voice, or hear the warmth of the instruments when you massage the tone, if that makes sense.
Wow.
Whereas in a digital environment,
it's harsher, I would say. Sharper, but harsher.
Correct.
Excuse me 1 second.
Smarter, but harsher.
Give me 1 second. I'm going to ask my team and crew behind me here to turn off their Wi-Fi, to go into airplane mode, because you're going in and out a little bit, and I think it's on our end because we didn't start the show that way. So thank you for that. But let's stay on this point. So what I heard you just say is there's some musicians that prefer the analog for a warmer, richer sound. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting.
It is. There's details in the music, and there's harmonics in the music that make you feel a certain way.
Yeah.
That when you make it super digital, for want of a better word, super digital, you're compressing it, you're EQing the life out of it.
Yeah.
And so a good recording engineer or a good artist or someone who knows how to use sound correctly knows the limits and can hear and perceive, we're crushing this thing right now. We're destroying the life out of it. Let's back it off or approach it a different way. Yeah. And you can learn how to have the best of the analog world and the best of the digital world. What happens is that you have every kid in the world in their basement with their computer creating hits.
Yeah.
Right. But what's happening is that they might have a catchy melody or a cute lyric
Yeah.
that this generation appreciates. Sure, that's fine. That's great. That's pop culture, right?
Yeah.
Great. However, it's getting diluted and diluted and diluted when it comes to real warmth and real quality of tone. So my mission is to appreciate the speed and the smartness of what we can do, but without losing that warmth and the character that we can learn from the analog age.
And it's also my understanding, and I'm going to get into some touchy conversation here with you, because I'm going to talk about music as it appeals to a satanic crowd and it appeals to a Christian crowd. There was a concert not too long ago, the last 3 or 4 years, where they were playing some dark music, right? And allegedly some people committed suicide or got sick, or there was a bunch of controversy. I forget the artist, I forget everything. But music or frequency or tones or sounds could be used for evil as well. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. And it is constantly used for different purposes. As you know very well, music can relax you. Music can produce emotions. Music is great for kindness, generosity, great for atmosphere of love, atmosphere of faith, atmosphere of joy. Likewise, even music that might make you feel for a moment joyful can have a deep negative impact in your life as well. So it's interesting because the design of music, the way it was created, is that you've got rhythm, which I don't care who you are. If you hear it or feel a good rhythm, something in your body's going to move.
Yes.
Now, even you may not appreciate salsa music, right?
Yeah, right.
It may not be your preferred genre of music,
right?
But something in that salsa rhythm, man, it's going to move a part of your body. Now, it might be the pinky inside your toe,
Right.
might be the hairs on the back of your neck, but something's going to move, Mike, and you're going to feel it.
Because
Whether you like it or not.
because it is energy vibrating at a certain frequency, and all your cells of your body, all the atoms of your body, everything is picking that up, and nothing is frozen in time. Everything is moving. Cells are moving, stars are moving, atoms are moving. Everything's vibrating at a certain frequency. So it only makes sense is that when we're exposed to this really cool rhythm, this really feel good rhythm, this sound rhythm, something in our body's going to move because it's already moving. It's just being amplified.
Correct. So the power of it is that someone comes into a concert, they hear some music, and suddenly their body's loosened up.
Yeah.
They feel something, whether they recognize it or not. They're more relaxed. They're more energy, or they're more amped up and ready to get into a fight, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So that happens. Second thing that happens is that harmony, a combination of notes, like I demonstrated before, with changing one note, went from an E major to an E minor in the 440 scale. That is.
Yes.
But what happened there is that it moves your emotions. It changes the way that you think about something, the way you feel. Your thoughts go in a different direction, or your emotions start to feel something romantic or joyful or peaceful or aggressive, negative or positive. And so the third part of music, which is the melody, in most cases, most genres of music, is what carries the lyrics. So if you think of it this way, someone is relaxed in their body, their thoughts are now geared towards a certain direction, their emotions are positioned in a certain way. Now here comes a lyric carried by the melody, and I believe it touches their spirit, man.
Yes.
So your soul is open, your emotions are open, your mind is open and positioned in a certain direction, your body is relaxed, and you're positioned to now receive those lyrics into your spirit. Now the lyrics could be destructive,
right?
They could be self-destructive,
right?
Or they could be positive. They could be, I believe all music is worship.
Yeah.
And that worship could be focused towards a celebration, a person, a thing, a substance. It could go anywhere. So the lyrics now are kind of free, for want of a better word, free to guide your heart and your spirit in a specific direction. Now, what happens is with tones and frequencies, if I played a tone of 500 hertz to you right now, it would sound something like, ooh, if I gave you 800, 900 hertz right now, it would be more like, it would be that sound. If I go a bit lower to 250, 200 hertz, it's more of a low mid-range tone, that kind of a tone. And the combination of those tones is what presents the music to us.
Yeah. And I think I read somewhere, isn't it the silence in between the notes that helps create the music?
Yes. Thank you for saying that.
Explain,
It's the
elaborate on that.
silence, it's the space in between
Yeah.
that gives power to the rhythm and gives power to the harmony and sets up the melody and the tones, the frequencies about to impact you.
Yeah, powerful. So, as a Christian leader and as a secular, musician person working with secular artists, so you have Christian artists, you have secular artists, you have Christian kids, you have secular kids. What? And I'm a parent. Let's say I'm a parent. I am a parent of 4 kids, 7 grandkids. So, what would you caution me? Because I'm always saying to my kids, you got to guard your mind, what goes in there. You got to guard your heart. But I think with music, it could get a little even sneakier. How they could use these frequencies, these tones, to get inside of you and then create some destructive behavior. Is that accurate?
Yeah, absolutely correct. There's a famous song that I actually really appreciate by Bruce Springsteen called Born in the USA.
Mm-hmm.
And, that song at face value, I was even hearing it the other day, you could translate it as a celebration of what it means to be an American, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not an American citizen, but I have many friends that are, and they're proud to be American. And that's a great thing. But really, the song, the melody could lend itself that way, but the lyrics are actually speaking about the hardships of being a blue collar worker and much more that I don't need to go into right now. But certainly, music has a way of grabbing your attention. It has a way of bringing people together or separating people and distancing them from each other. It also has a way of leading you to feel and think a certain way. But what happens with lyrics is that, like you said it really well, they're sneaky.
Yeah.
They're sneaky.
Yeah.
I have a real life story that's very real to me personally. And that is a young man who I had a house that I rented in Sydney, Australia, and basically just filled it with 7 or 8 guys. It was a big house, and we filled it with 7 or 8 guys that were all music producers or musicians. And one of them was a hip hop artist. Now, I love hip hop music, and I've produced quite a few hip hop albums and still to this day enjoy it as a genre. But he was getting into some pretty dark hip hop content.
Okay.
And the lyrics were violent, the lyrics were aggressive, the lyrics were suicidal, the lyrics were all kinds of things that were not beneficial to his mind or his soul. I actually challenged him on it at one point, and he responded to me and other friends, other roommates in the house, and said, "Okay, I'm gonna back off of this." And we saw a change in him. We saw a turnaround in him. He actually got off drugs and he got off other things. He was able to have a healthy life and a much healthier outlook on life. And it wasn't until a few years ago that I realized he was back in that scene in a very serious way. And the kind of music that he was listening to and producing and performing was again very dark and very negative. Now, the beat might be fantastic.
Yeah.
The quality, the excellence might be fantastic.
Yeah.
But definitely the content was not something you'd want to feed upon. Unfortunately, I received news that he actually committed suicide. And it was an out of the blue. No one knew really why. There was nothing really linking to that moment that anyone could say that he had lost someone in his life. No. Or he had lost a job or was in depression clinically or anything else. He just simply decided to take his life one day.
Wow.
And so I cannot assume that it was because of the music, but I certainly believe and saw firsthand that music had a massive impact on his life and his mental state. So if you look at that case, and I have many other cases that are similar, you can see the effects of music in people's life.
Yeah.
I personally enjoy many different artists, many different genres, both Christian and some secular as well. And as a producer, as a songwriter, I glean from artists from the past. I go back to classical music, jazz music. I'll go back to the early days of R&B that I appreciate.
Right.
But I'm very careful what I allow myself to feed upon, because it doesn't take long for you to become what you feed upon, if that makes sense.
Well, that's what the creation frequency books are all about. That's what my teachings are all about, is that, and we have to be very, very careful because it's all programming. And if you listen to bad music that doesn't feed your soul every single day, you're going to get programmed for evil. It's that simple. Because it's either good or evil, right? Eventually, at the end of the day, whatever you're listening to is going to make you better or worse. It's going to rise your consciousness or lower your consciousness. And I think with music, because you're dealing with so many frequencies and tones and rhythm, and it makes the body feel alive, but we still got to protect that mind. We got to protect that heart and make sure that the lyrics that are going into this other genre is not really hurting us and causing us to do stupid things like kill ourselves.
Absolutely. There are times that I will hear something on the radio or even a song in a movie that my daughter is watching or listening to, and I'm just like, sweetheart, please turn that off.
Yeah.
So she will, and then she'll ask me, but why? You know, that's not good for your heart. That's not good for your mind. That's not. You might like the song, but I'm sorry, that's not something that I want you to consume over and over. And you know, in my case, as a believer in Christ, a believer in God, I just have seen the power of it too many times to deny it.
Yes.
And I've seen the power of it in my own life where, you know, I get to use something that I love, which is music, harness the power of rhythm, harmony, and melody and tones, frequencies, and combine that with melody, which in my case, I believe is speaking words of life, which is God's word.
Yeah.
I believe that God's word is pure life. It's rhema. It's a substance to be reckoned with.
Yes.
And so I get excited about that. I do produce other music that's not necessarily gospel or Christian God focused, and I appreciate it as well. It's also powerful because I believe it was created to be powerful, made to be powerful.
And I agree with that, but I do think in the hip hop community, in the African American community, I think it got out of control. I think maybe I don't know what happened, honestly. And I come out of the African American community. What do I mean by that? I had a business in Oakland, California for 26 years. So it's predominantly African American. So I'm around that community, and there's some of those songs I think are okay, but some of the language and the sexual and this Cardi B and all this, I mean, who is that serving? What purpose is that serving? I mean, it doesn't uplift me. It doesn't uplift my soul. So if it's not uplifting, then what is it? And what has it done to that entire community? What, in your opinion?
Yeah, correct. I think that what you're saying is very relevant, very important. And I personally believe it's a great deception because people are consuming constantly. And I don't think people understand the power of music enough.
Yeah.
One thing is to watch a movie or a show or read a book or something that's powerful. But music, there's a study actually that I did on it. And, it's been proven again and again that music has a way of lighting up the brain.
Yes.
More than anything else. It inspires the imagination more than just being presented with an image or a movie or a combination. It's powerful as well. But music has the way to move your emotions and make you go places in your imagination that not many other art forms or creative forms have the power to do that. And you mentioned before about music that is satanic. And that's a real thing.
Yes.
And that's everywhere as well. Potentially, like I said earlier on, music was designed to be used to communicate. It's a language. It was created to be used as a language. It was designed to be used in worship.
Yes.
And that worship could be to God. That worship could be to another idol. That worship could be to a substance or a person or a thing. Or sometimes music is used to glorify depression.
Yes.
And people wonder why they're staying in depression because, well, you're consuming yourself with songs that glorify mental illness.
Right. And all you have to do is change the frequency, change the lyrics to uplifting, like Psalms. And let me ask you this, because, let me throw a name at you and see if you recognize it. B.J. Thomas.
No, I don't. I'm sorry.
So B.J. Thomas sang the song "Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head" way back in the 60s. And then he became a born-again Christian, and all his music was Christian-related. I'm just curious if you've heard of him or not.
That's a great song.
But when I was in the born again Christian world, which would have been in the early '80s, B.J. Thomas was too, and so he was doing. He went from a big name. He was actually playing little venues and churches, and he really got into the Christian aspect of music. And I've seen a lot of other Christian artists that start out as Christian artists and then fall away, and their music, perhaps Miley Cyrus is a good example of that, or people that
Miley Cyrus is a great example. Another one is
Amy
Beyonce.
Grant. Amy Grant maybe as well, right?
Yep. Miley Cyrus is a good, relevant example today. Beyonce is another one.
Yeah.
So there's a gospel artist singing worship songs, very positive. Her first few albums, herself and with Destiny's Child, were pop successes, but there also there was a positive energy that came from them. I think people appreciated. But you see where she is now. She's probably just as popular, if not more so. But it's dark, and it's something that
I mean, I'm going to go way out there. I'm probably going to get censored. Probably going to lose my audience. But this will probably be our last broadcast, right? But I read this many years ago, and I've done a lot of conspiracy type. I've watched stuff. I have an open mind. Let's put it like this. And what I was told, or what I read, or what I somehow is in my mind, is that some of these record studios, some of these record labels are somewhat satanic, and that they would, even before they release a new song or a new record or something, they'd actually have a seance, and they'd actually bring in demons and ask the demons to go with all these records and infect all the listeners. Have you ever heard anything crazy like that before?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it's more common than what you think.
Tell me what you know. I know what little I know. Tell me what you know.
So just the way that I would, present what I do before the Lord, before our Heavenly Father, and consecrate it to Him, to give Him glory, and pray that He might bless it and use it, anoint it, that it goes further than my ability or capability as an artist, further than my talent, that He might use it to breathe life, speak life into people, consciously and subconsciously. People pray the same thing when it comes to the darker side. And even great phenomenal artists like Michael Jackson did his own personal study to discover what is happening in these churches, what is happening in these amazing Christian concerts where people are gathering for worship or to celebrate God, and they're lifting their hands, and there's tears rolling down their faces, and they're expressing themselves, and they're having encounters with the presence of God that produces peace and joy. What is happening with these people? What is going on here? I want that, but I want people to be lifting their hands and crying over me. So he did a study to discover what was happening. And obviously his intention was not to glorify the Creator. His intention was to glorify himself. And that's a very dark, prideful attitude. We all know that pride comes before the fall. And that pride is not something that is, I think, gratifying to anyone when you look at it right. But there is a whole host of stories of people dedicating their music to Satan, dedicating their music to fallen angels, dedicating their music to purposes that are, abortion is one. The people's purpose behind their music, believe it or not, is to encourage abortion. And they're so aligned with that frame of mind and that belief that they live it out. And what's scary to me and confronting to me is that some of these artists that are so committed to Satanism or a cause like they're pro-abortion, they're perhaps more committed, more disciplined, more sold out to their cause
than the Christian,
than many artists or people that are committed to light. If that makes sense.
Wow.
It's challenging.
So first of all, for you parents watching or listening, hey, you gotta pay attention. I have 7 grandkids. My kids are all grown and old right now, so I don't have to worry about my kids.
You're productive. You're a fruitful man.
Thank you. But I have 7 grandkids, right? And they're at those ages, especially my 4 youngest girls. It's like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, we got to, mom and dad, you got to figure out what your kids are listening to, and it's harder and harder because now they get phones and iPads when they're 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. You got to monitor this stuff. This is real stuff. And evil, whatever evil is, okay, whatever it is it can enter into this vessel, this animal body that we live in. It can enter into that vessel via these frequencies, via these sounds. And so that's as parents, you have to be very, very careful. Now, as adults, because I know these rave parties and this and that, and in my day, my day it was disco. That's how old I am. But
Right. Okay.
but I think it's important that parents and grandparents and everybody realize that the power of this sound, this frequency vibrating a certain energy, we got to be careful of the lyrics because they get inside of us and they can harm us.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying, Mike, and it's important because, let me just say it. I believe that music came from God,
Yep.
created in heaven, as a way of us expressing creatively as an art form, telling his story, communicating another language, a way to worship. And, people get caught up on that word worship. What does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
It means to give worth to. It means to give thanks and honor to give value to, right? So whatever you are singing to or presenting this music to is what you're giving worth to, giving value to, and giving honor to as a central priority or focus in your life.
Yeah.
And it's that simple. You can worship football.
Yeah.
You can worship food.
Yeah.
You can worship sex. You can worship false idol. You can worship yourself.
Yeah.
And music is a way of expressing worship. Music is worship expressed. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And so if you can break it down in lots of different ways, but essentially music is a creative art form to express your worship.
And I would suggest to people listening and watching right now is, how does it make you feel? Now, if you're living in your lower chakras, okay, the 3 lower chakras, which are fear and sex and food, okay, you're going to probably like all this demonic music, and it's going to feed your lower energy centers, right? But when you move into the heart and to the pineal gland and into the crown chakra and to your light body, then you can go by feel. Good wholesome music makes me feel better. And there's some hip hop and there's some satanic songs that frankly just make me, I don't want to listen. So we got to trust how we're feeling when we're exposed to this stuff. And that's why I think in a lot of these raves and all this stuff, they add the ingredient of drugs, okay? Because what do drugs do, or alcohol, and they numb our consciousness, okay? And now we're just all in our body, all in this music and frequency that doesn't serve us, because the drugs allow all this. We let our guard down through the drugs and the alcohol. And then pretty soon, some people do get taken over by these entities and this demonic kind of possession in a way, right?
Correct. Music opens you up to feel a certain way and to think a certain way, which opens you up to other things very easily, very quickly, like you just mentioned. And that's why it's a sacred thing. It's a holy thing. It's an amazing thing, And yes, music can be expressed through different sounds and genres, even different frequency ranges, like we were talking about before. And I sometimes imagine, what is heaven like? What is it like? There's a passage of scripture in Revelation 4 and 5 that speaks about this glimpse of heaven. While there's chaos on the earth, there's this place of majesty and peace and joy where angels and creatures and people are singing in harmony the song of heaven, which is a prophetic song declaring who Father God is, who the Lamb of God is, and that he is still in control. Worthy is the Lamb, holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, and it continues. But what's beautiful is that the elders, the Bible describes, the elders are gathered around the throne. The elders are the ones, again, it's a prophetic vision. So it's a vision of the future, the present and the future, if you will. And so the elders are gathered around the throne, and they take their crowns and they throw their crowns to the ground, to the floor. They take their robes, their kingly royal robes that they've been given as elders of God, and they throw them to the floor, and they bow down, and they recognize that only the Heavenly Father is worthy of the glory. They thank him for the honor. And this happens day and night.
Wow.
And the song starts again, and the song starts again, and the song starts again. It's a glimpse of eternity, if you will. So I believe that that's powerful in heaven for Creator God. Should it not be powerful for us here
Yes.
to bring glory to God, thanksgiving to God through song, through frequencies?
Yeah.
And when it's used for the opposite purpose or different purposes, you know, it's a perversion, it's distorted,
Yeah.
and not the original intent.
Yeah.
Like everything, like everything that we can see today when it comes to how media is used, how visual elements are used, how substances are used, how wine is used, how food is used. Same as everything.
Well, I have to tell you, and this is a good time to end, but as you were speaking, it really touched my heart when you were telling that story from the Bible of how these elders are worshiping God and realizing that their golden crown is worthless, their godly robes are worthless, and it really comes down to worshiping the Creator of all that created all of this. And you know, I'm in Medellin, Colombia right now. I know you've been here, and we have these beautiful mountains, and we have this beautiful sky, and I could really see up in by Rio Negro in that area, I could really see angels and wise men singing and worshiping God from these mountains. I mean, it just while you were talking, that was what I saw in my mind's eye.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Having been in that area, Mike,
Yeah, exactly.
I see in my mind what you see. That's beautiful. Yeah. Powerful.
Well, I just want to thank you so much for being our guest here today, taking your time to come on our show. If someone listening or viewers, they want to know more about you, more about your work. And by the way, I didn't get to nearly what I really want to talk about, because we'll have to have you back on, because I want to talk about music that I need for my meditations. Even though I'm tone deaf, I love to write songs, and there's ways to do that for tone deaf people. So I'd love to have you back on, because there's a lot of things. I mean, I could talk to you forever because I love this subject. But so if the viewer listeners want to know more about you, how could they find you, or what should they do?
Sure. I'm here as a music producer, songwriter, artist, worship pastor. And, you know, you can contact me through social media, obviously. You can just look for Nathan Ironside. You can look for me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. There's a website, which is mostly in Spanish at this point, nathanironside.com, or eldespertar.tv, which means the awakening. There's information there. It's not difficult to find. And like you said at the beginning, I'm getting ready to release new music. I'm producing new music for myself as an artist and others behind the scenes right now, while we continue the work that we're doing here in Northeast Ohio.
And I have to say that, you know, he just made me feel really bad. So I'll talk out of school here for a second. His sister-in-law is Kelly. And for you regular viewers, you know Kelly because she does the Mountains of Hope segment. And Nathan's her brother-in-law. But that's not where I'm going with this, right? So...
Well, let me just say that Kelly is my sister in love.
Okay.
That's what we like to say.
Perfect.
She's a gem. She's amazing.
But the reason you made me feel bad is Kelly told me that you were talking to her sister and said you'd like to talk to her parents, but they speak Spanish and you speak Australian, whatever language that is, and that if you were going to speak to her parents, you had to learn how to speak Spanish, and you just demonstrated that you have done that. And I've been with a Latina for a while and I haven't learned. So congratulations on learning Spanish. And I'll
thank you, Mike.
Eventually, I want to catch up with you.
I appreciate that, man, and I will tell you, full disclosure, like music was my pathway to get there. Obviously, I'm passionate about my wife, Mary, and our family, but, you know, music was a tool that enabled me to dive into the language.
Yeah.
So I don't know, you mentioned that you're tone deaf. I know that you're creative. I know that for sure. Maybe there's another avenue for you to help you discover more of the language.
And let me ask you this. I think Spanish songs are prettier than English songs. What do you think?
I agree. I agree. I prefer to sing in Spanish. And many times at work or other places, I put on Spanish songs because I prefer it. The sound of it, the tone of it,
like Mi Amor sounds a lot better than My Love, right?
Correct.
It's got a rhythm to it. It's got a, you know.
You got to roll those R's though, Mike.
Well, no,
more.
That's a problem. We won't get into that. All right. Hey, Nathan, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And can't wait to have you on again.
Thanks so much, Mike. It's been fantastic. Thanks for all the great work you're doing. Honored to be with you on the show today.
All right. God bless you. All right, folks. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Coming up next is Kelly with the Mountains of Hope segment on how to use the power of song or music to heal your body. We'll see you in a second. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you loved that interview with Nathan as much as I did. And my biggest takeaway was how the power of sound, tones and frequencies in music can really heal our soul. I think there's actually a song that says music can heal your soul. But with that said, it can also be destructive. And that was such an interesting conversation for me. But we're going to talk about the healing benefits of sound, music, frequency, tones, all that great stuff, because we do a lot of that type of healing. Excuse me. We do a lot of that type of healing at Mountains of Hope. And now joining me for our Mountains of Hope segment is Kelly from Mountains of Hope. Hello, Kelly.
Hey, Mike. How are you?
And as we mentioned in the last segment, well, that was your brother-in-law, so thank you for getting him on here.
My pleasure. I love what he does. And
Yes.
because I grew up listening to music with really good messages. My parents actually, we were not allowed, my sister and myself, to actually hear music with the wrong message. So I know what it does. And I have seen them doing it with their kids when they like a song or something like that. It just goes to your mind. It just goes to your brain. So it's amazing to see how the healing part operates in our lives.
So let me ask you this. Let's say I'm a guest and I want to come to Mountains of Hope. What kind of sound healing or what can I expect to experience there?
So at Mountains of Hope, we will have like different ways that people can experience this, whether through meditations that we will have, whether pre-recorded or we have live meditations that are conducted by yourself. We also have, there will be probably sessions when we bring sound healing like live with, I don't know the Tibetans.
The bowls.
The bowls, yeah. My Spanish is coming a lot. Yeah. And also moments for people to actually relax, because it's finding that synchronicity between the brain waves and the music waves, which is what brings that healing space for each person. And we also have one of the things is we have energy centers, and each energy center is like it has its own frequency. Mm-hmm. So we also operate with that, knowing each person, the symptoms, what they're going through, the things that they want to heal. So we will know if it's more like the low parts of the energy centers, the top part. So it's really amazing, the spaces, and also nature. Nature has its own frequency and its own sound. So it's amazing to see what happens when you do like forest baths. In the middle of nature, when you just immerse yourself in nature, that is also a healing sound happening there.
Yeah. And let me elaborate a little bit that, because Mountains of Hope is located 7,000 feet in the Andes Mountains, and we have 20 acres, and we have a walking path around the entire property. It takes about 25 minutes. And there's about 300 or 400 feet of elevation change. So it's a great workout. But I'm falling in love with the nature. And Colombia has more types of birds than any country in the world. Mm-hmm. And every time I do this, I see other new birds that I haven't seen before, hear new sounds that I haven't seen. So sound and music and frequency is very powerful. And then you brought up the energy centers. And I know I have someone here in Medellin that's done chakra energy healing with me using the bowls and the things you tap them with. So we'll do that in Mountains of Hope as well. I find that to be extremely healing. And I found that and you can elaborate on this, but I found that when I was doing this with this frequency and this sound, besides being very calming and relaxing, I felt more energetic, but calm, but energy at the same time. It was very, very, and how do you think the heart, what role is the heart playing in all that?
I believe is when we see that music has frequency, and when we see it in waves, and we see our brain actually also has waves, when you synchronize those, because sometimes our soul is so much stress or under pressure that our own frequency and the waves that are happening in our body actually out of place. So the sound actually helps us to bring those back. And when you actually relax, you can have more energy because your body is not focusing, I need to fight, or I need to fly, or I need to freeze, or I need to just stay quiet. So the idea is that when we synchronize the waves of our brain with the waves of music, you come to a place that is not a relaxing, like I'm those, like I
Right,
don't do anything.
right.
You know, it's a relaxing point of your body when you're actually in synchronicity in your own body, so you are able to do whatever you are called to do. And that part of that is the energy. Part of that is your mind being clear. Part of that is you feeling like, okay, now I can resolve those issues. Because when the frequency of your body is out of place, you are not able to actually even think clearly. So it's amazing to see how that happens. And if we go back even to the moment that we sleep, when we are sleeping, we're in a completely different frequency. When babies are born, they are in a completely different frequency. So this beta frequency, which is when we are awake, is subject to many changes. But we actually relax, we go to a different type of frequency, and when we go into deep sleep, we go into completely different frequency that our bodies even are able to restore themselves. So it's a frequency of restoration. It's a frequency of detoxing. It's a frequency when you can actually literally have the energy for your next day. And the idea is that even at Mountains of Hope, the other thing that we also do and that we encourage people to have is, for example, using these wearables when we can actually check how much deep sleep you actually have, because it's in that frequency, in that delta frequency, when we can be restored.
Yes. And so, and the other thing is, and you and I did this a couple of weeks ago, and it just arrived. You haven't seen it yet. We just put it together this morning. But we also have purchased these zero gravity chairs that are super powerful. So you're literally laying like zero gravity, but they have these vibrating, these very powerful vibrating machines that are like moving your lymph system, literally moving your lymph system while you. But what's cool is that you're wearing headphones, and the music, the frequency, the sound is it's such a profound meditation. But it's in sync with the whatever those things are.
The vibration.
The vibration plates. So you have vibration plates, but the music, the frequency, the sound is all ingrained or entrained with that, and it's the most amazing experience. Tell the audience what you experienced.
I remember Mike took the 1 hour try,
right.
and I remember he came out like, oh my God, I'm like in another place.
Exactly.
I took the 10 minutes one, and it was really good, because if you see that, it's again helping you synchronize your body, because it was like the breathe in and breathe out were at different moments. For me, what was amazing is like when the vibration starts to be stronger, it's like a moment of a stress over your body. But that's where they say, okay, now inhale. I'm like inhaling in this moment. And it was a way to teach us like how to be able to relax whilst in the middle of a strong vibration. And that actually literally helps my mind and help me like, okay, I can do it even in the middle of those moments. Because sometimes we think, yeah, it's so easy to say breathe because you are not where I experience it. But right there, you experience like you can be under this strongest stress and still be inhaling, exhaling. So it was amazing. And it was 10 minutes. I only did 10 minutes, but it was amazing.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us today for the Mountains of Hope segment. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And since we went a little longer with Nathan than normally, the Power of Your Voice closed, Mike Murphy is going to be a little shorter, but I'll just close the show right now. And what I want to talk about is, sound and frequency and all this stuff is super important. I teach the creation frequency manifestation protocol where we use theta brainwave music to put you in a self-hypnotic trance. But I want you to understand how powerful sound is. I want you to realize how powerful your words are, the impact that they can have on your spouse or your children or your friends or your relatives. So we have to be very, very careful that we have this power that if we're not conscious and awake, we can use it to harm people as much as we can help to inspire and to create goodness in the world. So we have to be very, very careful with this power that we have, the power of our voice, which is the name of our show. But the thing I want to bring up right now is that in the book of Genesis, in the Bible, sound is so powerful that it says that God spoke this universe into existence with the power of sound. And I love the work of Nikola Tesla, the great inventor, who said if you want to understand the universe, you have to understand energy, vibration, and frequency. What is sound? Right now you think I'm speaking words, and I'm not. My vocal cords are moving air molecules, which is creating a sound frequency wave, sound waves, that then hits your ear through this microphone, through that camera, wherever you are in the world. It's going to eventually get to your ears. And when it goes into the eardrum and into the brain is when it's digitalized. And that's where the language is created in your own mind. All I'm doing is moving air molecules. So there's so many great illusions here in this world that we believe. And then we start to question things and really understand things. And then we can open our mind. Once we can open our mind and then move from our mind to our heart and open this beautiful heart that we have, and we start living with this beautiful, we start living inside this beautiful heart and using this powerful mind to create the life of your dreams. But sound and energy and vibration and frequency plays a crucial role in all this. So I want you to realize the power of sound and the power that actually created this entire world that we live in today, according to Genesis, according to the Bible, was all produced with energy, sound, vibrating at a certain frequency. God said, let there be light, and there was light, and it was good. So anyways, that's all we have for you today. The Power of Your Voice podcast. I'm your host, Mike Murphy, and hope to see you next week. And if you like the show, please subscribe, give us a thumbs up, share it with your friends. We love having you here. And until next week, go out there, live your life with passion, and create the life of your dreams.
Thank you for listening to The Power of Your Voice with Mike Murphy. This podcast is brought to you by Mike Murphy Unfiltered, The Creation Frequency, Mountains of Hope, and the Love from Margot Foundation. These sponsors are dedicated to helping you unleash your full potential and live a life of joy and abundance. If you enjoyed this episode, please visit our website at mikemurphyunfiltered.com and subscribe to our podcast.